DrConSni4.com.
So you'll have a special during this May 1st and 2nd forecast, mid-year forecast. You're going to do communion?
Yes, because many are sick and afflicted because they are not discerning the Lord's body. We are judging the Lord's body, and we're telling the Lord's body what it feel like it needs to do to become holy or whatever. But because somebody don't look like the Lord's body, we're assuming they're not, when the Lord's body must be discerned. Wow. So there are a lot of people that I can look at when I first meet them, and they do not look holy.
Wow.
But when I discern the spirit that's in them, when I discern the Lord's body. So we're sick and afflicted because we're judging the body of Christ by flesh. But when we begin to discern the Lord's body and see the inward temple and not the outward temple, then communion takes on a whole different thing. Then we learn we don't talk about one another. We're not mean to each other. We don't, because when we discern His body and we take communion, we know that you are that body, a part of that body, just like I am.
Right.
And if I'm not going to talk about myself, then I'm not going to talk about you mean either.
Wow.
And I need to be more careful about wounding and hurting you. That it'll take you 5 years to get over, when it didn't even have to be done. So when we talk about discerning the Lord's body, we also talk about moving from realm to realm and faith to faith and hope to hope. Talk about from moving from the position of being the Lord's bride into becoming the Lord's body. Because most people think that's the same thing, but there are different dimensions in God: 30, 60, 100, outer court, inner court, holy place, first the blade, the corner, full ear, in the corner. You can be a sheep, but see, Jesus can't marry a sheep. You can be a child of God. Jesus is not a pedophile. He's not going to marry and consummate a marriage with a child.
Wow.
Jesus is going to consummate the marriage with a full-grown woman whose breasts are full of the sincere milk of the Word. Wow. He's going to take that woman as His bride behind the veil to a place where it doesn't have anything to do with flesh. There's a communion and a consecration going to take place. And He will swallow her up, and then He will become her husband. When He becomes the bride's husband, then she moves on to become His body. Wow. Because His body is not a female body. His body is of the male gender. So the bride and the body is not the same thing. Jesus is not going to be Jesus from the neck up and then have on a wedding dress. That's not. So we must move from being His bride, being His wife, which is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful thing. But we need to move into consummating that marriage and becoming Him.
Wow.
Joy105.com